Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to Travel Talk Tuesday, the 23rd of February, 2021. Thank you guys for joining in, both on Zoom and Facebook Live. We're all squared away and ready to talk about the big capital city in the north of Italy, Milano, or Milan. The fashion capital. It's been around for centuries. The Romans discovered it and took it over from the indigenous people, but it's been a fantastic place, and what a great destination that is for us to visit. We have spent quite a bit of time in the last recent weeks talking about our travels throughout Italy and chronicling the time that we've had on what I call my Best of Italy tour that begins in Rome, and we're in Rome for a couple of days. We venture up to the coastline in Liguria, and we visit the Cinque Terre for 2 days, and that's what we're going to talk about next week, the Cinque Terre, or the five lands. We go to a small town called Volterra, which we've already talked about, Florence, Venice, Lake Como is where we discussed last week in Bellagio and Farina, and then today we're ending our tour in the capital city of the north of Italy of Milan. It's not the capital of Italy, but with a totally different culture up there in the north of Italy. It's more like, the further south in Italy you go, the more intense and the more laid back people get. The food is more Mediterranean. Up here in Milan, in this region, with the two regions of Italy up there, we discussed last week, the region called Piedmonte, and that's where Lake Como is. Milan is in the same region or state of Italy. And then there's a region just to the west of there. Hold it, I was wrong on that. Lake Como in Milan is in Lombardy. And then just to the west of that is a region called Piedmonte, which we're going to be talking a little bit about tonight as well. We've got some food cooked up here. Last week we talked about risotto Milanese. And I've even got some of that on the burner again. And this week, because we're going to pair that this week with a special dish from Milan called Osso Buco, which we'll discuss in detail in just a minute. I also went by my local wine shop and I purchased a bottle of wine from the region of Piedmonte. And I'm going to have to read this real quick because we were in the wine shop and the sommelier there was saying this is some of the best wine from Piedmonte. And so it is a Barbera wine. Last week we talked about Nebbiolo. This is a Barbera wine. And it's just a Maro Sebaste is the name of it. And it's a Coste Mon Liosio. So you can kind of see that there. I'm going to open it up and be tasting that as we go through the dinner tonight. Like I said, I got some risotto on the table, but without any further ado, let me share my screen and show you what I did this afternoon about cooking osso buco. Osso buco is a northern Italian cooking method designed to produce a tender, fall-off-the-bone veal shank. Osso buco literally means bone hole in the Italian language. The shank is the shin bone of a calf. This shin bone, or tibia, is loaded with marrow, which produces a rich, intense tasting experience. I begin my recipe by tying a length of kitchen twine around each shank and then apply salt and pepper on both sides. It then goes into a pot of about 2 tablespoons of vegetable oil. I brown it 9 minutes on each side. After the first 9 minutes, I flip it over and 9 minutes on the second side. Notice that each bone has a hole in it with a bit of marrow in the middle. The ingredients that goes into the stew are basically chopped onions, celery, and carrots, a bit of garlic, chicken stock, and white wine. These elements are chopped in about half-inch pieces. Once the veal shanks are brown on both sides, take them out, put them in a bowl. Pour in a cup of white wine into your pot. Scrape the bottom to loosen up all the elements of the shank that were attached to the bottom of the pot during the frying process. Let that wine reduce to about 1/2. And then take it and pour it over the veal shanks in the bowl. Reserve that until later. In the now empty pot, put a little more olive oil in there, or vegetable oil, and add in your chopped vegetables. The onions, the carrots, and the celery. Let them saute for 8 or 9 minutes until the onions are translucent and the carrots and the celery become softened. I also add a bit of salt and pepper to those vegetables as they're cooking, and this is what it looks like after 6 or 7 minutes. Preheat the oven to 350 degrees. Turn up the cooking burner to high and pour in about 2/3 cup of white wine, dry white wine. Let that begin to simmer into the vegetables. Then I add another 1.5 cups of chicken stock to the pot with the vegetables and the wine. Turn up the heat again. Let it begin to simmer a bit, and then I put in a tad bit of garlic. Stir it all together. Here we have it simmering after about 10 minutes. Then I begin to ladle in maybe 1/2 can, 10 ounces or so of pureed tomatoes, or you could even use diced tomatoes. Once that's all incorporated, I return the veal shanks to the broth. It should be just slightly covering the shanks. Make sure that you drain all the reserve broth and juices into there, because this is now loaded with rich marrow from the bones. Turn their burner up. Again, the oven's ready to bake at 350 degrees Fahrenheit. You see it simmering a bit. Put a top on it and put it in the oven for about 2 hours until you can insert a fork and the meat is tender and will almost fall off the bone. The final element is the gremolata, the topping that goes on it after it's cooked. It's chopped parsley, chopped garlic, and lemon zest. You chop a bunch of parsley, a zest of 1 lemon, and 3 cloves of garlic. And then you take it and mix it in a bowl. Stir it up really well with a fork. Hold it in reserve until you're ready to serve your meal. Just a few minutes before you serve the Osso Buco, put half of this into the Osso Buco sauce and reserve the rest to put on as garnish.
And here you have it, the final product, veal shank braised in vegetables known as Osso Buco. I'll serve it up with a bit of risotto, put the Osso Buco on top of the risotto, and add the garnishing and some of the vegetables on it, and it'll be a tasty meal for tonight's Travel Talk Tuesday. Hey, David McGuffin here for a 60-second look around the rooftops of the Duomo here in Milan. Work began on the Cathedral of Milan in 1386 and was finally completed in 1810. That's 424 years. But what would you expect for Europe's third largest church? It is constructed in the flamboyant or flame-like Gothic style with lots of over-the-top frills and crenellations, including 52 spires soaring 100 feet in the air, representing the weeks of the year. Both the interior and exterior are impressive, but I think the rooftop is the most attractive element. Many churches in Italy were built with a Renaissance dome in the 15th century, but the Dukes of Milan wanted their cathedral to look more like the churches in France and Germany. So we have a rooftop, not a dome, to explore. The Duomo is dedicated to the Madonna of the Nativity. From the roof, you can get a close-up view of its tallest spire, topped with a golden statue of the Madonna. An elevator zips tourists almost to the top, making this one of the most accessible panoramic vistas in all of Italy. From here, on a clear day, one can see the Milan skyline framed by the snow-capped Alps to the north. Hey, your adventure starts right here with David McGuffin's Exploring Europe. Ciao from Milano.
You know, this is a pretty cool place because I think I might even mention in the video here that it's one of the few places that you can ride an elevator to the top and not have to climb many stairs. There are a few once you get up there, but the vistas in other cities like Florence on the top of the dome, or Rome on top of the dome, or the bell tower, or Siena, all require climbing up 300-400 steps, something like that. But here you can ride an elevator straight up and walk about another 50 steps and you're on the top. It is a fantastic view. If you're looking back to the north or even to the northwest, you see these on a clear day, these snow-capped Alps. You also see the old town of Milan right below you, and then out beyond that is the new town of Milan with the skyscrapers. Back in 1959, the tire company Pirelli built the first skyscraper there in Milano. I think it was 26 stories, and it's a glass building, a rectangular glass building, and that was just so impressive. And that's right nearby the amazing architectural style, fascist architectural style of Mussolini. For example, the train station that is nearby the train station called the Central Train Station. Although Mussolini was a tyrant and colleague of Hitler and someone we don't really want to think of and remember, there is a particular type of architectural style associated with him that is pretty impressive and grand. So if you're ever at the train station in Milan, the main train station, that's a perfect example of that fascist type architecture. Now we're going to talk about Leonardo da Vinci. And Da Vinci was a famous Italian Renaissance or approaching the Renaissance artist. And he delved in all kind of areas of art, architecture, engineering, and everything else. And one of his most famous pieces of art is a fresco in this church, the St. Mary of being thankful to St. Mary Church is basically what it is. Santa Maria delle Grazie church in a Dominican monastery in the dining hall.
The Church of Santa Maria delle Grazie houses one of the most prolific works of art in the world. Milan's premier family, the Sforzas, employed Leonardo da Vinci to decorate the Dominican monastery's dining hall, which is located next to the church. Leonardo worked here from 1492 to 1498, employing a new technique of applying paint to plaster known as fresco. Leonardo decided to paint on the walls in layers as he had done on canvas. This was different from the usual technique of applying pigment to wet plaster used by other artists such as Michelangelo. Consequently, the painting began to deteriorate within just a few years. Thankfully, several restoration projects have halted the deterioration, leaving the painting still hazy and faded, yet magnificent all at the same time.
The first time I ever went into this dining hall of the Dominicans, which is an order of monks in the what we now know as a Catholic Church, but then it was a Christian church. Usually in the dining hall, there was a painting of some sort of the Last Supper, depicting Jesus and his disciples on the eve before his crucifixion. And so this dining hall did not have one. So the ruling family, who was very rich at the time, the Sforza family, decided to commission Leonardo to put a picture on the wall of this dining hall of the monastery. Now, Leonardo, although he was a fantastic artist, did not have a whole lot of experience painting on plaster. So he took the plaster wall and just used it as a canvas, just like a canvas that you would paint on nowadays, and began painting everything on there in layers, depicting the background first, everything else. But he was meticulous with the perspective. And you can see right in this photo here, I don't know if you can see my cursor or not, but if you see Jesus's eye, Leonardo, actually there is a little small nail hole in Jesus's left eye where Leonardo actually took strings and ran them back into the dining hall, if you can imagine, to give this perspective so that on the wall of the dining hall, the perspective continued on back, but yet as you're looking at the fresco that he painted, the perspective continued on in three-dimensional aspect. And you can see it's all perfectly in proportion. And that was something in 1492 that was just artists were just approaching being able to depict. So it's very important to see that. And it's also, everybody is composed in sort of a V shape or a sort of a wing shape configuration where Jesus is in the center, the disciples are all flanking him, but they're all symmetrically flanking him, and they're all in proportion. You can also see down here at the bottom, let me get this out of the way. You can also see there's actually a real door down here in the bottom that later centuries, that no one was thinking, the art was so great, but they needed to cut a door to get into the adjacent room or the kitchen. And so they cut a door right in there, and it just obliterated Jesus's feet and half the disciples' feet. So if you could see the original, I've been told, without the door there, Jesus's feet, Leonardo depicted them being crossed already, symbolic to the day of his crucifixion, where they would be nailed through. And so there's a lot of symbolism here as well. Of course it should stop, but I was here in September 2018, and getting a ticket to go in and see the Last Supper is very challenging because you have to begin booking 3 months in advance to get a slot, a 15 or 20 minute time slot during the day. And so you can either try to book online, which fills up very quickly, or give them a call and you have more chance of doing that. But we happened to be there with normally our smaller groups. I think we were there with 6 or 8 people, and so we had a booking for, let's say, 2:30 in the afternoon. So we had 6 people, so we had 2 of us could go in at 2:30, 2 of us could go in at 2:45, 2 of us could go in at 3 o'clock, and we were there. We showed up ready to go get our ticket and go in. Everything was backed up. There, all the people coming in for the previous hour or so were still queued up in the piazza. Nobody getting into the ticket office to get the ticket. And then all of a sudden, people were wondering, well, what in the heck's going on? Why can't we get in? And then we began hearing rumors of some diplomats or dignitaries were touring the Last Supper on their own. And so as it turned out, this entourage that walked out finally before we were able to go in was the premier of China. Let me look at his name here. Let's see, Li Keqiao, Premier Li Keqiao. And he was there along with his entourage and touring this and monopolizing all the time we had booked, along with 100 other people looking at this. Now, keep in mind that I don't even think it was a Christian. I'm not judging, but I don't think so. But they took up all this time. But this is him right there waving. I waved, and he waved right at me. You see that? He waved right at me. At least I laughed and said he did. But anyway, that's how it is. It's just monopolize the time. So everything out at a moment's notice.
Hi, David McGuffin here from Milano at the first ever Starbucks installed in Italy. It's called the Starbucks Reserve Roastery. The Starbucks Reserve Roastery opened in September 2018 inside Milan's historic Poste building located on Piazza Cordusio. According to Starbucks, this Reserve Roastery showcases the theater of coffee roasting, brewing, and mixology. The premium Reserve experience offers limited availability, small lot Arabica coffee, sourced from 30 countries around the world, and roasted for the first time in Europe, and paired with freshly baked artisanal foods from local baker Rocco Princi. The roastery is loaded with augmented reality experiences that encourage their customers to use their mobile device to discover more. One wall depicts a map of the world's great coffee-producing areas scattered along the equator. The coffee bar is set up as a stage where many baristi will handcraft more than 115 beverages across multiple brewing methods. At the heart of the environment is a fully functioning Scala coffee roaster manufactured just miles outside the city center of Milan. The espresso machines are flanked by several bean grinders which are linked directly to the Scala roaster by an elaborate series of copper piping. Local baker Rocco Princi has installed an authentic wood fire oven to produce handmade products such as flatbreads, pizzas, and breads in the sweet and savory varieties. Well, there you have it, Starbucks, the first one ever in Italy, here in Milano. Your adventure starts right here with David McGuffin's Exploring Europe.
And the next segue is to one of my favorite places in town, and that is the Grand Hall where opera is presented, and or opera, as we say in Middleburg. Now, I showed up in Spain one time. I got in a taxi cab and asked to go to the opera. Let me stop this. Asked to go to the opera, and no, he didn't have a clue what I was talking about. You know, I thought that word was a Spanish-Italian word. It was universal. So I had to show him the map. And the Spaniard taxi driver laughed and said, "Oh, you mean the opera?" So I say it that way, not like Oprah Winfrey, but like the opera, where you go and sing. So La Scala is a famous opera house in Milan. It was built in the, let's see, 1778, and it is just so grand. I remember in 1977, when I was there with the choir that I was in, we went in and were able to go to a performance of Don Giovanni there in that opera house. And gosh, those things last a long time, 4 hours or so with an intermission and whatnot. And for me, as a young 20, 21-year-old, even though I was studying music, it was difficult to keep focused on the whole thing. But I knew the libretto, I knew what the story was about. We stayed there, but I think my friends and I skipped out the second half and went touring the city. My director never knew it, but because we showed it back at the end. But anyway, it was a great time. So here we go to the Scala. Let me talk over it just a tad. This is the interior, and it's grand. You can see the boxes and everything up there. There's a huge floor, and then it has the high-class boxes. And then where I'm standing is the cheap seats, where the people who are opera aficionados, who don't want to spend the money to go and be highfalutin with their glasses and everything, can go up there and for €5 hear the whole opera and see the whole opera. And they are known as some really big bullies or great fans, because from that section comes either rave reviews, cheers and applause, or boos. And even grand performers, like there was a tenor in recent years that got on the stage and was performing. The folks in this, the opera aficionados in this cheap seat section, booed him off the stage in his costume, and his understudy came on within a split second, not even in a costume, and filled right in and gained rave reviews. And the next day in the paper, he was the star of the show, not the guy who had been booed out. But it's pretty amazing here, this place. You can go here and take a tour, or you can go in the evening and see it. The opera season begins on the 7th of December every year. We hope it continues this year, 2021. Here I am with the grand finale. Let me let that catch up a second. The next section we want to visit is a sort of a new section of town for me. It's not new in any scope of the imagination for the Milanese, but it is a section of town that is called the Grand Canal. A few weeks ago we were talking about Venice and with the canals being there, but here in Milan, the Grand Canal are a series of canals that connect the city with the Mediterranean. Oh, let's see. Not Siri. I'm not sure I understand. Navigale Grande. My dang phone is coming in here. Let me stop it. With the Navigale Grande. And this is a series of canals that connect the city of Milan 150 miles south to the Mediterranean Sea. And although Milan was not a seaport ever, because it's so far away from the sea, with the help of Leonardo da Vinci and others back in the Renaissance era, canals were built and locks were built that could bring fresh seafood and all kind of commerce up through those canals to the very heart of Milano. And that's what we're looking at here, the Navigliano Grande. And you can see it's just a beautiful district. And in the last 10 years, it has been gentrified and plenty of restaurants along the way, the canals and everything else. It's just a great place to get away and get out for a wonderful evening. And this is one of the places I enjoy having this particular dish, Osso Buco Milanese. Let me let it run here. That's some sort of spaghetti bolognese. And there's also buco. And that's what I hope I'm going to serve up on the plate in just a few minutes. Dave Ballantyne, thanks for the photo you just sent me, sitting right here in this area, having the same thing.
On my Best of Italy tour, I ended in the city of Milan. It's a totally unique experience from anything else that we visit. It also has a grand cathedral, a Duomo there, and some inside shopping places that are just fantastic to visit. You can do all that in like 3 hours in the main city center square. Church is Gothic. Can you tell the difference? We haven't really seen a Gothic church. It's called a flamboyant Gothic or flame-like Gothic. It can hold 40,000 people inside. So let's go in and look at it. So we kind of finish up our tour in Milan, have a grand dinner together the last night, and then everybody heads on their way the following morning, either off to another adventure or flying back home to the United States. They're in their 2-week vacation in Italy. So the reason I designed my Best of Italy tour is because it covers the best destinations, personally for me. And I think for those who travel with me, they'll agree that they have some fantastic and unique experiences everywhere we travel. So from Rome to the Cinque Terre to Tuscany and Volterra, Siena, Florence, Venice, Lake Como, and Milan, all of those are my best destinations and some of the very favorite places in the country that I've visited. Your adventure starts right here with David McGuffin's Exploring Europe.
Okay, I think I'm back full screen, and thank you guys for joining in tonight. Here, I prepared the final product. Let's see, even the steam's coming off of it. Let me get it here on the camera. Osso Buco Milanese. That's rice with saffron in it. I forgot to put the cheese in, but I guess I'll do that in a minute. And then I got the veal shank all set to go. And so that's what we're having tonight for dinner. We kind of snacked on a few cheeses and everything as well along this way. And then I've opened up this wine. And remember, it's a Barbera wine from Piedmonte. And it's not near as It's not near as full of cannons as Barolo we had last week, or down in Tuscany, the Brunello, but it is really great. It's a bit fruity. It is dark and heavy, so corposo would be the Italian word for that. But it also has a lot of berry flavors like blackberry, blackcurrant, and whatnot. So we're gonna take a break here and have our dinner of Osso Buco and risotto with our wine. Thank you for your regulars who join in, and thank you guys for the new folks that join in both on Facebook and here. Hey, listen, next week we have one more episode of Italy for a while, and we're dealing with the Ligurian coast, just south for about 100 miles of Milan, and just one of my favorite destinations there. 5 little villages located on the Ligurian coast. So we'll be visiting the Cinque Terre next week. So until then, thank you guys for joining in. So until next week, thank you. Keep in touch. You guys take care. Thank you for joining in. Buon appetito, and we'll see you next week. Ciao.